All right, everybody, and welcome back to the 100th episode of the best darn show on the internet, the Over Sharon show. Yes, I'm so excited. This is the 100th episode, even though we do have an episode recorded for next week. So, but you
We have something going on that week, so we're just trying to get ourselves ready.
Yeah, that'll be 101. But no, we're really excited. It's also the 2 years.
Over Sharon 101, like it's like the class.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been 2 years too since we've been doing this.
August 20th was the anniversary. And today's what, the 24th?
24th. Yeah, I can't believe that it's been that long. That's crazy. Yeah. Not that 2 years is a long time, but it just went by so quickly.
It did in some ways, and in some ways it didn't. That's what's interesting about you. Can you hear anything? There's a freaking landscaper outside. Can you hear all that?
Good. I can't hear anything except for your lovely voice.
It's just really annoying to me. I'm like, dude, there was nothing. There was no sound before I joined. There's a sound now. So
that happened too. The neighbor over here started his tractor up, but he has since stopped. But when I walked in here to come up, I'm like, of course. I wasn't really worried about coming up in the show, but I was just like, man, if he's going, I'm not gonna be able to hear as well. But he stopped, so that's good.
Good. Spoons and QSB in the house.
What's up, guys?
Yeah.
From the beginning too. It's great that they're in here because they've been watching us from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel like 2 years, guys? What do you think? It's crazy, right? 100 episodes. Even though, so for people who maybe haven't been following us for the full 2 years, they might be like, wait, episode 75? How's that your 100th episode? Well, somebody had the right idea to really number the episodes in a weird way.
Esoteric.
Yeah, okay. It was the esoteric. It was the beginning. So we are at number 75.
Not only did we start at 0.
Yeah. We did start at 0.
Yeah. Which I was not expecting. When you did that, I was like, okay, I guess we're starting like the full card.
Yeah, exactly. And then we went along kind of going 1.1 and 111 and 222 and all these crazy numbers. And
sometimes we would relate them to the tarot deck if it felt relevant.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested in that, go back and check out our episodes. You can go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the Over Sharon tab, and you could check out all the podcasts through Podbean, and also on YouTube. Obviously, all the episodes are here.
Speaking of which, I just enabled yesterday the ability, which I didn't know was possible until I was just scrolling through YouTube yesterday, and something popped up that said YouTube podcasts. I'm like, that's a thing. And I guess you can make your playlist a podcast. So I went ahead and did that. And our playlist Over Sharon show is actually now a podcast that will show up in your YouTube music.
Awesome. That's amazing. Quiet Sparky Bear says that the terrible Over Sharon crossover was epic. And it's funny that you say that because Ashley texted me last night, but I didn't see it till this morning because I went to bed early last night. She wants to start doing the show again. We keep talking about it and all, but I would love to start doing it too. So you never know. Maybe you'll get some terrible podcast episodes coming up soon. So
yeah, that'll be fun.
Look out for that. Yeah, I love that. That's a fun show. And we covered all 78 cards in the deck. So if you guys are into the tarot, go to tarotbowl, tarotboll.com, and that website is still there, and it will direct you to all
your episodes.
Yep. And there's some episodes here also
on
YouTube, and not all the episodes are at that terrible podcast. You have to go to comedylol.com to get the new ones. I have so many websites, which is actually renewing tomorrow.
That's funny.
Questioning if I was going to renew it or not, but my email is kind of attached to it. So I guess this year.
Yeah, it is. And your your atrociously terrible podcast. I'm just kidding. Is still on there. So
yes. Yeah.
Maybe one day you can unify them somehow and get them all in one place or something.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I might have to download them all. Anyway, that's here nor there. Let's get on.
That's here nor there.
That's here. That's here now.
Ram Dass.
Yeah, exactly. Here I am, here I remain from Dune.
Oh, who says that?
Leto. He
Oh,
says, here I am.
Which
here
Leto?
I remain. The first.
Okay.
The
OG. Father of
Paul.
The father of Paul. Okay.
Paul's.
What was Duke Leto, the first Duke Leto Atreides? What was his father's name? Did they ever say?
Paulus.
Oh, Paulus. And they named their son after him, kind of.
Yeah, Paul.
Yep. Cool. So we got some Dune. We just got some Dune questions out of the way there for you guys. Just
Duning. We're Duning it up. Yeah, some Dune trivia, just in case you weren't sure.
We'll sprinkle it in here and there.
Yeah, totally. Especially Dune. Oh man, wait till you get to Wheel of Time. Oh. Anyway, here's today's quote. Oops. Yeah, I did it right. Okay. It's funny because when I share things, it doesn't always pop up on my screen. It pops up another window for some reason. Here's the quote. It really seems to me that in the midst of great tragedy, there's always the horrible possibility that something terribly funny will happen. Philip K. Dick, who is a science fiction author. Yes, this quote is great to me because not only am I a comedian, I've always seemed to find the humor in everything. And sometimes it got me in trouble, mostly in school. And sometimes in the Marine Corps, although I did get an audience when I was in the Marines. So I did make a lot of people laugh, and they actually asked me to stay in because I was able to make everybody laugh. They're like, you can't leave, you make us laugh. And I've told that story before, and I was like, I probably can do that somewhere else and make more money or put up a less yes.
Oops. So I am pulling from, you guys don't know this yet because it's gonna show up on next week's episode that we already recorded, but I have a new deck. The Visionary I Ching by Paul. Hey, there's a Paul O'Brien. Paulos.
Paulo, ¿cómo estás?
I really liked the everything was synced when I saw this deck on Amazon, and I was very drawn to it. So I decided, I'm not usually impulsive about things like that, but this one really, I felt really called to me. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get that. So, and it was like next day. And I was like, I think that means I need to get that. So I did. And everything, because it's so synced, and we're learning about the Tao, and the I Ching is very related to it. So here I am with a new deck, and I will pull a card. All right, here it goes.
It's on you, by the way, just so you know.
Oh, okay. You ready to go back to us, or you want me to show it?
Yeah, I want you to show go ahead.
This is called Pushing Upward, number 46, Earth Above, Wind Below.
Ooh. Those are very shiny cards, too. I like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to reduce. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. It's kind of not as reflective there.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting. They look like lotus flowers on the top, right? I'm not looking at it very.
Yeah, it does. You can't really hear you because you're not.
Oh, sorry. They look like lotus flowers on the. Yes, it is. It's lotus petals. Oh, wow. Yeah. It pushing upward, duh, because that is what a lily does. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Pushing upward. Let me read. Okay, so this one's interesting. It's almost the upside down of what I will pull in a week for you guys who have well, we'll see it in a second here. Let me just pull the the book reading. Number 46. And you can see, you can see what it looks like right here. Brandon, can you see?
Yeah. Oh, it looks like an H almost.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
All right. So it says natural advancement is represented by growth in springtime when new plant life pushes upward through the earth. The emphasis is on upward motion, a movement from obscurity to influence, with growth that is supported by adaptability and an absence of obstacles. I love that. Constant, flexible growth is the key attribute of a plant pushing upward. This reading suggests a period of promotion and prosperity for you. I've been kind of getting that symbolism lately. It's interesting. The wise person in harmony with fate is sensitive but determined. Make a sincere effort to apply a determined effort against the forces of inertia by bending around obstacles that rise. I like that. And good fortune will follow. By remaining tolerant and flexible, you will retain the conscious innocence that best fuels growth and advancement. Willpower and self-control are necessary to manage growth properly, but an inner enthusiasm for life is what drives it. Let me read that again. Willpower and self-control are necessary to manage growth properly, but an inner enthusiasm for life is what drives it. Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. Of course, there are readings for each one of the broken or straight lines, but that's a little bit much more to read. So I will just leave it at that. Sounds lovely, though.
Yeah, it does. It's a good card for this episode, I think, too. Celebrating our 100th.
Absolutely. Totally.
100th episode. What's up, Zerlath? He's in the chat. I got your text the other day. Sorry I didn't answer. I've been under the weather and just all over the place. But
hope you're feeling better now. Clearly you are, right?
Yeah, yesterday was right. It's funny too, because it felt more like allergies, than some kind of cold or whatever. I never had a fever or anything. But Zeralath is talking about a Renaissance fair he wants to go to. So I talked to Joe about it. Let me know what dates work, and I'll let you know if I'm off those dates for the weekends. But yeah, man. I'm feeling better today, and I'm back at it. Last night I wasn't sure, but I just went to bed really early and I slept for like 10 hours and
nice.
Feeling great now. Sounding maybe a little off, but I'll be good. Yeah, I couldn't even I tried, because we all know what they tell you about tobacco and all, even like cannabis. When you're smoking, it's not good for you. But what I found that actually can clear out your lungs. But yesterday I couldn't even
do that.
I was just like, so I didn't even, I tried later in the day, I tried smoking some cannabis, allegedly. And I was like, nope, just kept coughing. But I think it might have helped. Got all that stuff up. But yeah, there's been some weather changes here recently, and who knows. I think also, see, the way I think it works, depending on the realm, and, I guess Venus went into retrograde and now Mercury's in retrograde. I think when these different things happen, sometimes it can spur a detox event person that some other people would call sickness. And then could it be that the powers that be, or the powers that want to be, latch onto these events and try to scare people, And I feel like this is cool to talk about too, because it's our 100th episode, but I feel like we're coming into a pretty heavy psyop season. And I think I mentioned this on the episode we recorded, which is going to be out next Thursday. We're going to premiere it. How this September is going to be 22 years since the one in 2001. And that's always like a master number, so it already seems like they're firing up the stuff. I heard some places are like asking you to cover your faces again and all this stuff. Yeah. But I think it's a misdirection, like they're probably going to get this fever going, and then who knows, aliens, whatever, something else might happen. But just never fear, guys. Just keep going with the Over Sharon show, and you'll be fine. And just like Philip K. Dick said that's another reason why I picked that quote, was because there's always something funny in the midst of a quote unquote tragedy or
it's been funny.
Yeah, it really has. And
I don't even know if it's a real thing, but allegedly there's a country that landed on an object in the sky.
The moon, yeah.
I'm like, right.
I saw a meme already, and it was a 7-Eleven on the moon, and they're like, that was quick. Yeah, because it was India. So I don't pay attention to anything. Did they show any footage or whatever? Or do you know? Or
the footage looks like it's freaking from a 90s video game.
Oh, really? Isn't that great? With the technology that we have now, you should be able to see them from here. Like, you should be able to zoom in and see them landing on the. Yeah, dude, it's hilarious. But you know what, though? I think they really have to keep people's attention, because right now is a time.
Or distract them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a distraction, because there's never been a better time to manifest, what you want. When everyone else is going crazy and paying attention to these psyops, it just leaves more opportunity for other people, So you can either become stuck in fear, installed in fear. We talk about that next week, a lot about fear, or, you could act despite fear. That's the thing about fear. It's not like you don't feel it. They even told us that in the Marine Corps, like, you're still going to feel fear, but it's acting despite that. And the same thing when I was getting into stand-up comedy, I read a couple books about it. And this one lady, I think her name was Judy. Oh, it'll come to me, but she wrote a book about it. And she said, you're going to have fear, but it's not about not being afraid. It's just about acting despite your fear. Right. And so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All righty. Well, what are we talking about today, Sharon?
Well, today we're doing a commentary on the Tao again, and we hope to get through verses 7 and 8, which, I mean, I'm sure we will. I don't see us having a problem doing that, but we might, if there's time, get to verse 9. Who knows?
Yeah.
We did say that last week that right? Yeah, last week that we would try to get to the next one, and we didn't, which is fine.
Yeah, more content for us later on. All right, so let me bring up these. So today we're going to be talking about verse 7 and 8, hopefully, but 7 is the first we're going to start. So I guess we could start like we always do. I'll read the Stephen Mitchell version from 1988. The Tao is infinite, eternal. Why is it eternal? It was never born, thus it can never die. Why is it infinite? It has no desires for itself. Thus, it is present for all beings. The master stays behind. That is why she is ahead. She is detached from all things. That is why she is one with them. Because she has let go of herself, she is perfectly fulfilled.
Lovely, lovely. I'm just seeing, how I think it was last week we were talking about how the Tao can be explained and described as something versus like some people might describe it as God and personify it, and others will just say that it is, give it certain properties, like it is this way, or it does. Well, if it does something, then it personifies it. So it is this way, and people will describe it, but some people will give it personification. So that it's just making me think. So it's cool.
No, I hear you. That's the best thing about this. Like, no matter how many times you read it, it's just
something else will pop up at you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dwight Goddard called this verse, which is, you want to scroll just a tad to see the verse number? There we go. Verse 7. Called verse 7, humility. Heaven is eternal. Earth is lasting. The reason why heaven and earth are eternal and lasting is because they do not live for themselves. That is the reason they will ever endure. Therefore, the wise man will keep his personality out of sight, and because of so doing, he will become notable. He subordinates his personality, and therefore it is preserved. It is not because he is disinterested that his own interests, question mark. Is it not because he is disinterested that his own interests are conserved?
Well, I like that he's not making claims, right? He's just asking a question.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll do it like, there we go. Okay, so Stan Rosenthal, 1984. Sheathing the light.
Yeah.
I thought it was sheathing, and then sheathing? Sheathing the light. When living by the Tao, awareness of self is not required. For in this way of life, the self exists and is also non-existent, being conceived of not as an existentiality, nor as non-existent. The sage does not contrive to find his self, for he knows that all which may be found of it is that which it manifests to sense and thought, which side by side with self itself is naught. It is by sheathing intellect's bright light that the sage remains at one with his own self, ceasing to be aware of it by placing it behind. Detached, he is unified with his external world. By being selfless, he is fulfilled. Thus, his selfhood is assured.
That sounds a lot like the one we just read, interestingly enough.
Yeah, especially with the behind.
Yeah, the sheathing intellect's light was the other one sounded like that. There we go. Concealment. So Aleister Crowley's is called The Concealment of the Light. So it's funny, this time these two guys are kind of seem to have a similar title. The other one was what? Humility, right?
Yeah, they were both there.
Yeah. The Concealment of the Light, Aleister Crowley version. Heaven and earth are mighty in continuance because their work is delivered from the lust of result. Thus also the sage, seeking not any goal, attaineth all things. He doth not interfere in the affairs of his body, and so that body acteth without friction. It is because he meddleth not with personal aims that these come to pass with simplicity.
I like that, delivereth from lust, so like deliver us from evil, kind of, you
know. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to think about that when we get there.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so like we always do, we're gonna read this top part, and then I'm just gonna check out the chat really quick to see if we're missing anything. Oh yeah, you're talking about the cards. Okay, cool. All right, so the Stephen Mitchell 1988 version, the first part, the Tao is infinite, eternal. Why is it eternal? It was never born, thus it can never die. Why is it infinite? It has no desires for itself, thus it is present for all beings. So I think really it's kind of like a continuing theme with the Tao, how like it's even God follows the Tao kind of thing, like it's the way, like it's just always been this way.
Yeah.
And also the part why it's infinite, because it has no desires for itself, so it overcame any desires. And I think that's kind of excuse me, it's giving somebody a little bit of a hint as to how you could be infinite is to overcome your desires, and then you could be present for everything that happens, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And just in contrast with, like, I was trying to say earlier and I lost my train of thought, but this first part is talking about how the Tao is infinite. It's kind of about the way, right? And then the second piece of that is talking about the master, So the person who follows this way of life. So it's just interesting how you see the dynamic of this Tao and then the one who follows the Tao.
Exactly.
All right. Humility. Heaven is eternal, earth is lasting. The reason why heaven and earth are eternal and lasting is because they do not live for themselves. And that is the reason they will ever endure. So in this case, he's just talking about how this endures forever. And the other one was taught on, so Dwight Goddard's version is talking about how heaven and earth will last forever. And the Stephen Mitchell version talks about how the Tao is infinite. So it's kind of interesting how the Tao is also described as heaven and earth. Right?
Yeah, I like that. And what was I going to say? I might have lost it. It'll come back to me. It always does.
So
right,
maybe I'll just ask you this.
Yeah.
The Tao is, quote, the way, right? And then, I mean, Aleister Crowley also uses heaven and earth as this symbolism for the way as well, as we saw like in the very first verse, I think. So what do you think about how heaven and earth is being used as comparing or as just an example of the Tao, the way? And I'm trying to think of it myself, and I'm just like, well, what is heaven and earth? Just in my own perception, and the law of one comes to mind.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, but I forgot.
Perfect. So then it's like this realm, this 3D reality is the way. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, well, what I was gonna say was, because if you think of the law of one, they just say there's different stages, right? There's 7 different, and then you get on to the next one and it's the same, but it just goes on.
And they're nuanced. They're like, sorry, not nuanced. They're fractal. So they just it just goes on and on and on.
It just repeats and it keeps going. So I like that because it really does make you think about expanding and elevating consciousness. And if that is the Tao or that is the way, then that's just what we're here to do. And we just keep going through it and up and through it. And it's funny because in a lot of religions or a lot of these belief systems, they always tell you that there's this place you go and that's it. You know, like once you're done with this, you're going to go there, and
it's over. It's going to be great, and you're going to live forever, and you're and I always wondered to myself, well, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? I was just like, well, that's boring.
The streets are paved with gold.
We're done. It's over. Like, that's why people like, I have a sibling who became so disenchanted with religion. And I'll just say he, my brother.
You only have one brother, right?
Yeah, I only have one. So everybody will know who it is if they know him. I'm just kidding. But he was always just like, it sounds boring, like hell sounds more fun.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it does make you
always
think,
pester
right?
my mama with that.
I think that's why being in the present moment is one of the most important things, because this is never going to happen again. What we're going through. I mean, okay, so there's different people say like we live these lifetimes and maybe we go through them again, but I think this exact
moment, they're not identical. How could they be?
Yeah,
it's just like, thinking about the whole concept of like, if you could go back in time, and you like, even just changing one little thing could change. And the Dune talks about this. The Dune book talks about this. Like when Paul has this prescience of like, or prescience, I haven't looked up how how to pronounce it, but when he has this ability to see the future in certain moments that he realizes that any little tiny shift of doing or not doing will affect the future outcome. So he sees all these possible outcomes. And then he's like, but I notice that if I were to just, touch that side of the mountain, or if I were not, whatever, that side of the wall, or if I were to not do anything at all, that would even make changes in the future. So yeah, it's crazy. I forgot where I was going, but
it's really deep. Yeah. Well, we were talking about like reliving lives and stuff, but I think that's
so they would never be identical.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe we do relive our lives in certain points just to learn lessons. I mean, who knows, right?
But that's a cycle, right? Like you learn them through cycles. It may not be the same exact person that comes into your life, but they bring you the same exact energy that you need from which you need to learn. I mean, Spoons and I have talked about that before, the cycles and how they come back around again if you haven't, finished making a learning experience out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you attract to you, like those 7 Essene mirrors that
we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah, you guys are going to get to hear about that next week with the different mirrors that people can be to you. And one of them that I really like is a mirror of judgment.
That's is that the second one? That's the second one.
Yeah, I think so. And it shows you what you judge, and it's really kind of mind blowing to think about that. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. Like when stuff happens
me too.
in my life,
me too.
I get pissed off. I'm like, well, I'm judging this, and there's a reason why it's happening because I'm not okay with it yet. So it's going to keep happening to me until I'm okay with it. Yes. And I think that's really why, like, focusing on the present moment, like be here now, as Ram Dass would say, is one of the most important things in this realm, because I feel like there are lessons for us to learn, and we could probably learn them more clearly and get through them if we are focused on this present moment. And it does sound like hippy dippy, a new age or whatever, but let me tell you, like, anytime you have an issue and you're worried about something in the past or the future, especially, or anytime I've had one now, issues and stuff, I focus on the present moment, because it's really, the future isn't set and who knows what will happen. It's like that. I think it's some kind of proverb. It might even be like Taoist or whatever, where it's like there's a guy running from a tiger, and he climbs up or he's starting to climb down a cliff, because he comes to a cliff and he climbs down, and the tiger's up at the top of the cliff, and then he looks down and there's another tiger at the bottom. And he's like, oh shit, what do I do? And that represents like the past and the future. And then he looks in front of him while he's climbing, and there's a strawberry growing there. And it's like, he just eats the strawberry. It's like, enjoy that strawberry, because who knows what's going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I look at it with all this, all these talks of cataclysm and the earth breaking and, all this crazy stuff. I was watching Lord of the Rings, not last night, but the night before.
I need to watch them again. It's been so long.
And they talk about the breaking of the world. And I said that to Elizabeth. I was like, wow, the breaking of when the world broke, they talk about it. And also in that Wheel of Time book, they talk about the world breaking. And I just think about all the stuff we look into, like with the ancient cities that they find that disappear, nobody talks about them, and the layers of civilization.
Buried. Yes.
Right. It's like, how many times have we been through this, or our, whatever it is, our souls or our consciousness, how many times have they gone through these different stages? And it seems that what we think of as physical is always going to change. But the one thing that doesn't change is the Tao, right? The way. So it's more about
heaven and earth, dare we say.
Yeah. Like the physical parts of it change, but what we're here to do and the way never changes. And if it's always going to keep bringing us what we need to learn, our lessons will keep coming until we're done, I guess,
So we're ready to go to the
fight
next step.
against that. Yeah, you could fight against it, or you could just learn your lessons.
Yeah.
But fighting against it's fun sometimes. I'm not going to judge it, right? All right, let's bring this back up so we can move on. All right, so
the next slide, right?
Yeah, we've read these top two. Let's bring these in and then we can talk about a little more. All right, so Stan Rosenthal, 1984, Sheathing the Light. When living by the Tao, awareness of self is not required. For in this way of life, the self exists and is also non-existent, being conceived of not as an existentiality, nor as non-existent. So I like this because a lot of these religions and new age stuff, they talk about the ego and the ego death and all that stuff, where if you just think about how it's quite possible that all of us on some level are part of the same consciousness, right? And maybe this consciousness, just like say we're in 8th grade or whatever, right? And we want to go to high school, say everybody in the class had to pass before we can go to the next one, then it would be a lot more about having compassion and love for everybody, than about judgment and stuff, because we all kind of have to go through these tests and we all have to learn. Although I don't think it works exactly like that. I think as the pieces of consciousness evolve, they probably shoot up, kind of like in the Law of One, how that talks about it. But I think realizing and remembering that we're part of the collective consciousness on some level is very helpful, because it helps you to not judge everybody as much.
Yeah, good point on that. Because did you have anything else to say about it?
No, go ahead.
I'm noticing how this one is just completely different than the other two as well. It's like, so the other two talk about, the Tao being infinite and eternal, and both of them kind of match up, Stephen Mitchell's and Dwight Goddard's, which is, it's so interesting how when I put this together, I didn't plan on these things, but sometimes they do that. They parallel each other. But the Stan Rosenthal one is just saying when living by the Tao, whereas the other ones are just talking about the Tao or heaven and earth being eternal. And this is saying when living by the Tao, awareness of self is not required. It's so interesting where they're getting that translation. It's so different. Wow. I'm just like mind boggled by it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm gonna scroll back up here too, so we can kind of get a look at this. And shout out to Benjamin Balderson and Robo Honky in the chat. Ben said, "Way too much sexy in one place."
He's so funny.
This is our 100th episode, Ben. Can you believe it? Isn't that crazy? We've been going strong. We have the best people in our chat. All I'm telling you, even there's like 7 people, but it's funny, 7 people, and we're on verse 7.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's the quality of the people.
Nice. Oh, and greetings, Robo, too.
Yeah, what's up, Robo Honky?
But yeah, I mean, if it's possible, you can zoom out to see kind of both of them at the same time, but it might not be that doable, which is okay.
You know what I could do? Maybe if I make it, it's tough because the Zoom software gets in the way for some reason.
Yeah. Oh, the little magnifier.
Yeah.
You can use that one. It wasn't working. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna do that now. Oh, is that too small?
That's probably too small. But let's see. That might be good right there.
Yeah.
So you can see, if you scroll up a little bit, you could see, the Tao's infinite. And then over here, you see when living by the Tao, and like the contrast it's just interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And it's crazy because, I mean, if nothing else, you could take away from our episodes on the Tao is that the translations, right, and how much they change. And just think about like the Bible, for example, or any other text you might be interested in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Aleister Crowley's version entitles it The Concealment of the Light. So he's also doing this heaven and earth thing like Dwight Goddard does. And sometimes he parallels Dwight Goddard a bit. Heaven and earth are mighty in continuance. So there it is, like eternal, like the other guys were saying, because their work is delivered from the lust of result. I got to think about that.
Well, I to me, I love this because it's really short and simple and to the point.
Yeah.
Right. And it's basically telling you that heaven and earth are mighty in continuance. What's
Continuance.
that? Continuity.
They're mighty in their eternity or something like that. Because
their work is delivered from the lust of result. So they don't have any concern with their result. They just keep their eyes on just doing the work in the correct way.
Day to day, the present moment, just like we were talking about. Good point.
Right, exactly, the present moment. And it's kind of tough because of the way English and everything works right now. But yes, people, you should still be worried about your result and make sure that it comes out right. But what I think they're talking about, and after diving into a lot of different topics, I think especially the Bhagavad Gita kind of talks about this, where it's not about worrying about the result as much. It's like you just do your best and it comes out how it comes out, like whatever you do. Like I'm a wedding DJ, right? I go to a wedding and I make all my preparations beforehand, get the music ready that the people want, and I just do my best that I can. And then whatever happens, I let it go. It just happens. And then I don't let that last performance bother me. It's just like playing poker, right? The same thing too. If I'm in a poker tournament, I know I've used this analogy a lot. If I lose a hand in the tournament and say I should have won that hand, but for some reason on the river, the last card comes and this guy hits his card and he makes a flush, and I lose the hand. Well, I can let that bother me, and then it'll bother me the whole tournament, and maybe I'll get knocked out. Or I could just let it go and say, listen, I did my best. When I went all in, or when I made the bet, when my money got in the pot, I was good. I had the better hand at the time, and the odds were in my favor. This guy just got lucky. So it's that same kind of thing where you're not really attached to the results. So it's not like you are, whatever you're doing, you're not doing it for the result. You're just doing it because that's your job. That's your dharma, right? Or as they would say, you're just out there doing your thing. You're not really attached to the result of what happens or how it's, it's kind of like if somebody wrote a book, right? Like Tolkien, for example, he writes Lord of the Rings. He's not worried about what's going to happen and how people are going to take it and all that stuff. He's more worried about telling this story, and he knows it's going to reach the people that it needs to reach and have the effect that it needs to have.
Yeah. And
yeah,
we touched on it when we recorded the episode that'll air next week. But like this concept of like I think we talked about at the beginning of this episode, the things that are going on in this realm right now and the fear mongering that's beginning to happen. It's like, don't be concerned about that future, whatever that is. Just be in the present moment, because could it be you'll be delivered from such ridiculousness?
Yeah. And the thing too is, if you have no control over something, I feel like the way this realm works, you won't be held accountable for it if you have no control. So everybody's worried about maybe like food shortages, or I don't know, like a nuclear bomb or whatever's going on, like some kind of alien invasion or something, right? It's like, if you have no control over it, just do your best with what you got, and then the rest will take care of itself. And if for some reason you do happen to exit this realm and you are killed or whatever,
that's how you were meant to go.
Yeah, we're all gonna die anyway, but you know that you did your best in every moment for that, and you're not gonna be held accountable, So, But again, it does, like, with these psyops and all these crazy things that go on, if you are somebody who is covering your face and you're fearful and you're just doing whatever they say, well, then you're going to have to live with those results, right, of all that stuff. And in that way, you're kind of part of the problem, I guess you could say. So then you might be helping.
You're just living in this fear of acceptance, or, not being accepted, or not being able to do what you want to do, or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why there's really only so much you could do. You can't save the whole world. You could only take care of yourself and help the people around you. And I think if that's what you're doing and you're in the present moment, then you'll be fine. Like I've said, and I think I said this on the episode that's going to air next week, even if there's some crazy cataclysm happening, I feel like like things are sinking into the earth and there's like a mud flood or whatever, or like plasma coming out of the sky, I feel like if you are doing your thing and you're not in fear, a way will be provided. Maybe everyone else will sink into the earth around you and you'll just have like an island next to you, or you'll be on an island and you'll be like, oh, this is great. So I really feel like that's the way this realm works. And I haven't really seen any evidence to the contrary.
Yeah.
Of course, people die young and things happen. And we've talked about this, and since this is our 100th episode, we might as well plug episode 13 and 13.13, where we talked about death and the people that we know in our lives that died that were really close to us. And to add to that, I could just say that we have no choice of when it's our time to go. I mean, I guess unless you kill yourself, right? So it could be for a different reason. We just have to exit the realm at this time. We don't know, but to be in fear of it, especially if something we know that's going to happen, I think is not going to help us, or not going to help you in any way. If that makes sense. People, yeah. I love how in the background you have this guitar and then there's a mirror with the reflection of that guitar.
Thank you.
That's like so awesome. It's like esoteric in its own way. It's great.
Thank you.
It's like you have two guitars.
It was Cody's idea to change the prop. Well, it was my idea to change the look. And then he's like, what about a guitar? He had some other ideas, and I stuck with the guitar.
No, I like it. And you see half the reflection in the mirror too. It's really
cool. Which I didn't intend, but that's what's next to me. So.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go back to these. All right. So back up to 7. With the Stephen Mitchell, 1988. Now, the second part, the master stays behind. That is why she is ahead. She is detached from all things. That is why she is one with them. Because she has let go of herself, she is perfectly fulfilled. Now, this is like a classic example of, what's the word that I'm looking for here? I'll bring it back to us, where it's like not a conundrum. I want to say conundrum for some reason, but you get a lot of this in Eastern philosophy where it sounds different, like the master is ahead because she stays behind, and you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense, and
I can't think of the word either. I mean, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that is why she's detached. That is why she's one with them. Because she has let go of herself, she's perfectly fulfilled. So it's
paradox.
Yeah, there you go. Paradox.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes. It sounds like a paradox, right? But I feel like when they say stays behind, it's more like you don't care, right? It's like you don't have this care of being
you opt out.
Yeah, or being number one or being the top one. You just kind of, like we said, you just do your dharma, and because of that attitude, that actually puts you ahead of other people.
Yeah.
Without caring. And that's really, it's kind of like the first shall be last and the last shall be first.
Yes. I never understood that in the Bible. I never understood that, but this really makes sense now, the way you're explaining it. And I think this totally ties in with that.
Yeah. It's like if people that want to have power, right, they get power, but then they're corrupted, but the people that don't want power, when they're put in power, they're actually better leaders,
Yeah. And
right?
it ties in with the humility that Dwight Goddard entitled this verse, because that's basically what it is. Like, a humble person will stand behind, but that's what makes him ahead. That's why the last shall be first.
Yeah, because in standing behind or staying back, you actually are ahead of the pack because of your attitude. Crazy.
Indeed. Dwight Goddard's version says, therefore, the wise man will keep his personality out of sight. And because of so doing, he will become notable. He subordinates his personality, and therefore it is preserved. It is not because he is disinterested that his own is it not? Is it not because he is disinterested that his own interests are conserved? Could it be? So yeah, again, this concept of humility and that subordinating your personality. He subordinates his personality, and therefore it is preserved. Like, it's like he it's like self-control. Didn't I just read that? Oh my God, I just read that.
What?
Right? In this 46.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
It said, willpower and self-control are necessary to manage growth properly, but an inner enthusiasm for life is what drives it. Holy smokes. Self-control. I was just thinking about that. So like, he subordinates his personality. So he has self-control over that personality that's not going to, go crazy just because somebody, jumped in front of him in line or cut him off in traffic or whatever. He subordinates his personality, and therefore it is preserved. So he preserves his personality, his character traits, to be those of someone who is in self-control.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of, well, two things. One, I love how he ends this with a question because, he's not making a statement, which that's like was the core foundation of
our show.
We're not making statements. We're just asking questions. But he really does highlight it really well, because he's like, is it not because he is disinterested that his own interests are conserved? So it's like you're not pushing ahead. And the other thing this just kind of reminds me of, maybe we can make a correlation, but when I did comedy, I learned that if you're ever, because it's not like we were always at a comedy show with like a great audience. Sometimes you're at a bar, doing an open mic, or sometimes it's just chaos or stuff going on. And a lot of the other comedians that have been doing it a while, they'd say, well, you could get up there and you could be loud and you could yell and stuff, but if you're quiet, people will be quiet to then want to hear what you're saying. So then you could kind of take the whole energy of the place and bring it to your level. And it's the same thing. Instead of trying to shout over people and get their attention, you're just playing their game when you do that. Right? They're the ones being loud. So you just switch it up on them and you change the energy. And if you're changing energy, therefore now you're basically in control of the room or whatever it is, without even trying to be. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like changing directions, I guess you could say. But I love this though, because it's not about you or what you want, right? It's about following the Tao. And this is just kind of a way that to make it easier. And I feel like the Tao or any of these religious texts or whatever, it's just if it's understood in a correct way, it's just a manual for living, just kind of learning your lessons more easily and getting through this without so much suffering.
It's like Jesus said, follow me. He meant do the things the way I do them. Why? Because he set an example of this humility, lots of things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right, let's bring it back. Bring it back. All right, so we were
second
Yeah, down here. Okay. All right, 1984. Stan Rosenthal, Sheathing the Light, Part 2. The sage does not contrive to find his self, for he knows that all which may be found of it is that which it manifests to sense and thought. We should probably break this down one step at a time because it's so wordy.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to just do it?
Yeah, I think what they're trying to say here is that, again, when he says the sage, he's trying to tell you the same thing like you were saying, trying to attain to Jesus, right? It would be like the same thing, like
follower, the disciple.
Yeah, or by the sage,
the master.
It would be like Jesus does not contrive to find itself.
Yeah.
For he knows that all which may be found of it is that which it manifests to sense and thought. So they're kind of saying that in the world here, everything that could be found of yourself is what manifests to people's sense and thought, which side by side with self itself is not. So basically, they're saying that it's an illusion, right? That this yourself that you have, your ego self or whatever, is kind of an illusion. It is by sheathing intellect's bright light that the sage remains at one with his own self. So the intellect is this thing that they talk about a lot, right? And some people say, oh, it's good to be intellectual. And some people say, this Eastern philosophy way to look at it. And I think that you can have all this knowledge and you could grow it up, or you could build it up, and you could be the smartest person in the world. But if you're not looking at things in the right light, it doesn't really matter. So also, it's kind of telling you that you might think you know better than the universe or the Tao or source, but all you know isn't anything. Like, it's more about listening and paying attention and following your intuition, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, this whole sheathing intellect's bright light. It's like saying, I'm okay that I don't know.
Yeah, right.
It's okay to not know everything.
Ceasing to be aware of it by placing it behind. So it's, again, putting it behind you. Like it's not that big of a deal. Just because you know something, everybody thinks that they knew something. Like, I bet everyone thought they knew something, and then 3/11/2020 came, and they're like, whoa, I didn't think that was going to happen, right? So, detached, he is unified with his external world. By being selfless, he is fulfilled. Thus, his selfhood is assured. And I think this is...
Again, that whole paradox sounds like...
paradox. And by being selfless, and really I think what it means by being selfless is just not putting yourself ahead of others, just realizing that everybody in this way it's like loving your neighbor as you love yourself. You have to love yourself before you can love your neighbor. In that,
but it doesn't mean that you're better than other people.
Yeah. And again, this is more of, I think, an internal thing, like a spiritual thing. Because in the physical, yes, we do have rules, and you don't want to put yourself down and be like a slave to other people in this way. But it's more about realizing that just because you're pissed off about something that's going on, and whatever that person in front of you in traffic is doing to hold you up, it doesn't mean that they're any less than you, and that your needs are more important because you have to get to where you're going, right? It's all kind of an equal thing. And I think it's funny because that's how, like, socialism... And because I feel like people know this on some level, but then when it tries to get put into the physical world, that's how things like socialism and equality for all kind of get thrown into the mix, where it's like just a slight misunderstanding of this idea just creates this whole like egregore of, evil action or whatever you'd want to say. But again, this is more, I think, about spirituality, because it's about how you feel about things that are happening and what's happening to you, what's happening around you. Like, are you feeling like a victim because someone's cutting you off in traffic and holding you up? Or, maybe like this has happened to me a couple times where there's an accident that happened like just in front of me. And I'm like, man, right there, it's like freedom, but I'm in traffic by like 3 cars, and you're like, why did this happen? And you get all upset about these things. And this is a way to look at that by just
In
saying
the present moment.
yeah, I guess I'm not the most important person in this realm. You know, things are going to happen the way they do, and I can only really control how I feel about what happens. And by doing that, you're going to have less stress. You're going to be able, like you said, to focus on the present moment, and then maybe you'll remember something that you forgot, and then you could, you know, whatever, have a much better day because of it, even if you're late to where you're going.
Something that so this whole concept of loving neighbor as self made me think of like, well, what does it mean to love yourself, right? And I just had this thought that could it be that it means you recognize your self-worth, and then you can, once you do that, you can recognize that other people have that same thing too. So you first have to recognize in yourself that you are worthy of love, acceptance, and it's okay to love yourself and to accept all of yourself just the way you are, because that is living in the present moment, right? And if you do that, then you'll be able to do it for others too, because you've already shown that to yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And then again, the new age will take that and say, oh, you're perfect just the way you are. You don't have to do anything. And yeah, that might be true to a certain extent. But if your actions are still causing you to bring upon yourself these learning
cycles,
these cycles, and that's just going to keep happening, which is fine. It's perfect. It's all part of this. And since it never ends, you could literally be stuck in this for an eternity, right? And have to learn this lesson if you're super stubborn about it. And it's just going to keep happening and happening to you. Oh, what's up, Gordy?
Yeah.
And
say hi.
Yeah, or you could realize that I forgot where I was going with that. Gordy threw me off. It's all right. I just saw something that Gordy might like. You maybe saw this, but it was a meme. It's like the lady's like, "Oh, I'm a night owl. I was up all night," and the guy was like, "All owls are night owls. You're just a."
I think that was in his chat. That might have been posted.
Oh, was it in his chat? Okay.
Maybe. I can't remember. It probably was.
All owls are night owls. That's great.
You're just an owl.
You're just an owl.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but that'll come back to me. I'm just over Sharon. All right, so let's bring this back then. Bring this funky Tao back. There you go.
Were you finished, or you finished it, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Aleister Crowley's version says, "Thus also the sage, seeking not any goal, attaineth all things." That reminds me of what he just said right before, which was work is delivered from the lust of result. So he's not seeking any goal. He doth not interfere in the affairs of his body, and so that body acteth without friction. There you go. The acceptance of self just as you are. He's not worried about, oh, I'm this, I'm that, or why do I feel this way? Why do I feel that way? No, he's just like, I accept myself just as I am. Yes, maybe, let's say I have allergies and I'm sneezing all the time and I'm XYZ. It's like, okay, well, maybe that's a test or a lesson of some sort. And once I figure that out, maybe that'll go away. Maybe it won't, but that is who I am right now. And that's how I accept myself. I'm perfect just the way I am. And if I'm meant to experience the healing from this, whatever, allergies or whatever it is, then I'm, thank God. But for now, I am just as I am. All right. Sorry. Back to the verse.
Oh, I like that.
It is because he meddleth not with personal aims that these come to pass with simplicity. I'm preaching to myself, y'all. Okay. So don't think I'm preaching to y'all, but this is for me, because this is resonating with me so much right there. What he just said.
Yeah, it's so true. And that I remember kind of what I was saying too. It was about the new age slant to all this stuff because and we've talked about this a bunch. It's like if you with this knowledge, you could create a whole new age, quote unquote, like evil, whatever cult or whatever. You could create a cult with it because you could be like, it says it right here, just the same way, like a lot of Christians, a lot of different Christian, like strains of Christianity will do that because they'll say, oh, it says right here, but it's up to you to have the discernment, right? To understand what's going on and to see through the paradoxes. And I think that's why there's a lot of paradoxes, so-called paradoxes built into this because somebody might look at this and be like, wait, we shouldn't have goals. I don't understand. We shouldn't have personal aims.
Exactly.
Right. And it's not, I don't think it's not about not having personal aims and personal goals, but it's about realizing that those personal aims or goals aren't above God or the universe or the all or Odin or whatever the hell.
I love that.
Believes. I love saying that.
Yeah.
The All Father, right? It's about realizing that you can only do what's in your purview, what's in your power to do. And if you align it with the Tao, the All Father, with God or whatever it is, or nature, then it's going to work out much better for you.
Right. Like, I'm just going to throw out the example of allergies. Not that that's something affecting me, just as an example, but like, I mean, yeah, sometimes I'm sneezing and stuff like that, but
I'm all sneezy today. So,
like let's say the goal that you have would be to not have allergies anymore. And let's say you are looking for natural methods of healing and things like that, right? Well, in the meantime, if you're working on self and healing your wounds, I would say that it is possible and likely that you could reverse the allergies, right? But it's not about that being the goal. It's about that being like part of the path, but not necessarily the end goal of your path. Like it's just something along the way. So it's part of your journey. It's part of the experience. And you live in the moment and because everything happens for a reason, you will learn from this. You will learn something from that.
Yeah. And maybe it's just not your time yet, or
exactly.
Like you said, it's your personal goal to not have allergies or feel under the weather or whatever, but that's not the plan for nature or the universe. It's like, no, your plan is to still feel this way because you have to learn something, or unbeknownst to you, maybe you had to cancel plans and maybe because you were feeling under the weather, and maybe those plans were going to turn out a lot worse. Maybe you would have got hit by a bus. You know what I'm saying? Like I say that all the time, but it's so true. We never really know what could have happened or what was going to happen. So, and it's the same for people that have regrets about the past. They're like, oh, if I only did this or if I only did that. I'm like, well, you could have did that. It would have worked out better. But then a day later, you could have got hit by a bus. Like, who knows?
Yeah. I have a dear, close person to me that is experiencing some difficulties and hardship right now and just in her life. And, she was telling me the other day and she's like, if only I had, done this. And I'm like, you can't do that to yourself. You can't beat yourself up about that because you are where you are. And like, knowing you did the best you could. You did everything that you thought was right to do. So you can't be blaming yourself. That doesn't help. It's not helpful.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying that you know better than God at that point,
Yeah.
So.
Not to make her feel bad or anything, but
yeah, I'm just being
not
her personally.
Just
in that situation. Yeah, exactly. But it's good though to have friends to remind you of that, especially on this path, because I think a lot of people think when they get into all this knowledge and stuff that you just become woke all of a sudden and you know everything and then you're perfect. And I think that we are here to learn lessons, and then when we could get help from other people or when they could show us things, just like the Over Sharon show, it's a great benefit. And it's also a good benefit to learn how to accept that assistance from others.
Yeah. And Brandon referenced episode 13 and 13.13 about death. And I remember, I think I talked about when my husband passed away, I, you know, I couldn't even think of anything that I could have possibly done to help, because I knew that I just was working with what I had at the moment. Of course, years later, when I found out more about natural solutions, to health, if that had happened then, of course, I would have implemented those and hopefully been able to help. But I didn't have that at that time. So all I did was the best I could do with what I had. So I didn't feel regret either, because I was just like, I don't have anything to regret because I did the best I could. So you can't beat yourself up about stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, you could, but we don't suggest it here in the Over Sharon show. It's more about the present moment. The past is already done. It's done. It's already gone. It's already history, right?
Mm-hmm.
For her story. All right, let's see. We'll get back into this, and I guess we can go to
verse 8 now.
8? Oh yeah, let's do it. Verse 8 of the Tao Te Ching. All right,
Stephen Mitchell version.
Stephen Mitchell from 1988. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus, it is like the Tao. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. When you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everybody will respect you. I love this verse.
Yeah, this is a good one. And it's very clear. I don't feel like it's not being vague in any way,
Yeah. And there's not many paradoxes.
Yeah. So the Dwight Goddard version from 1919 says, or he entitles this verse, "The Nature of Goodness. True goodness is like water, in that it benefits everything and harms nothing. Like water, it ever seeks the lowest place, the place that all others avoid. It is closely kin to the Tao. For a dwelling, it chooses the quiet meadow. For a heart, the circling eddy. In generosity, it is kind. In speech, it is sincere. In authority, it is order. In affairs, it is ability. In movement, it is rhythm. Inasmuch as it is always peaceable, it is never rebuked."
Right. Stan Rosenthal, 1984, verse 8. The way of water. Great good is said to be like water, sustaining life with no conscious striving, following naturally, providing nourishment, flowing naturally, providing nourishment, found even in places which desiring man rejects. In this way, it is like the Tao itself. Like water, the sage abides in a humble place, in meditation without desire. In thoughtfulness, he is profound, and in his dealings kind. In speech, sincerity guides the man of the Tao, and as a leader, he is just. In management, competence is his aim, and he ensures the pacing is correct. Because he does not act for his own ends, nor cause unnecessary conflict, he is held to be correct in his actions towards his fellow man.
And the Aleister Crowley version, he entitles it "The Nature of Peace." Admire you the highway of water. Is not water the soul of the life of things, whereby they change? Yet it seeketh its level, and abideth content in obscurity. So also it resembleth the Tao in this way thereof. The virtue of a house is to be well placed, of the mind to be at ease in silence as of space, of societies to be well disposed, of governments to maintain quietude, of work to be skillfully performed, and of all motion to be made at the right time. Also, it is the virtue of a man to abide in his place without discontent. Thus offendeth he no man.
I love the analogy of water.
Mm.
Verses, because it really it's showing nature, right? We always talk about how you should follow nature and stuff. So it's just showing this example of water, right? And how it nourishes things. And I guess we'll bring it back so we can cover these again. Oops. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus, it is like the Tao. So basically, you're just getting an analogy with water and how water works in this realm, and how that you should be like water.
Mm-hmm. And the lowest place. That's so the it's funny because the Dwight Goddard will say that too. True goodness is like water in that it benefits everything and harms nothing. Like water, it ever seeks the lowest place, the place that all others avoid. Stephen Mitchell says that people disdain. Interesting. So Stephen Mitchell is saying people disdain the low places, the humility, could it be? Dwight Goddard is saying the place that people avoid. Yeah, people avoid humility, don't they? It is closely kin to the Tao. So there you go. Water is like the way. Could it be?
Be like water, everybody. And Stan Rosenthal wordy edition.
Which is not as, look how long it is. It's not that long this time.
Yeah, compared
at least not that part.
Great good is said to be like water, sustaining life with no conscious striving, flowing naturally, providing nourishment, found even in places which desiring man rejects. In this way, it is like the Tao itself. So that we're getting there's like a theme here in this first part of verse 8, amongst all these, where they're talking about the lower level, or this level that people, and it reminds me of like Jesus, right? Where Jesus hung out with the sinners and the saints.
Yeah.
That same kind of thing.
Absolutely. And then the Aleister Crowley says, admire thou the high way of water. I love this because he's saying the highway, but everyone else is also talking about the low level of it, right? So he's going to contrast it. Is not water the soul of the life of things, whereby they change? So water actually can change you. It causes change in the soul. Interesting. Yet it seeketh its level. That's interesting that he was saying this in the 1920s, because that's kind of a theme with people these days who don't think that we're on a spinning ball, dare I say. And abideth content in obscurity, and that is relating to the places which desiring man rejects. And the other two verses were saying the low places, just like we were saying. So he's okay to be obscure. He's okay to not be the limelight. He's okay not to be the center of attention. So also it resembleth the Tao in this way thereof. So I like comparing it a little bit to the Stan Rosenthal there. I like how it's saying sustaining life with no conscious striving, flowing naturally. And to me, that I always go back to like flow state, which is like wu wei, wu wei.
It's funny, all the water analogies that there are, right?
Yeah.
Flow.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Stephen Mitchell, part 2, verse 8 is indwelling. And I like this because this part 2 of verse 8 is basically just telling you how to live. It's like a guide for how to be content, right? Indwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. And this one to me is huge, because if you think of governments these days, and anybody that wants control over somebody else or wants to manage them or whatever, they always want to control, right? And this one is saying, don't try to control. It's same thing with, I guess you could say with like parenthood. If you have a child, it's not really about control, right? In work, do what you enjoy. In family life, be completely present. I mean, that's, if you don't have any, that's got to be like the best advice I've ever seen, right? Just be present. When you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare or compete, everybody will respect you. And it's funny because a lot of times when you are comparing or competing, you're trying to gain everybody's respect. Like you want to be the top dog. Well, this one's telling you if you don't compare or compete, then everybody will respect you, right? This is the way to get it. It's like another one of those
true respect, honestly, because like,
yeah.
when people are showering you with praise and putting you on a pedestal, is that really truly respect? Probably not.
Yeah, I agree. It's like a weird form of respect.
Yeah. So the Dwight Goddard version, second part of verse 8. For a dwelling, it chooses the quiet meadow. For a heart, the circling eddy. In generosity, it is kind. In speech, it is sincere. In authority, it is order. In affairs, it is ability. In movement, it is rhythm. Inasmuch as it is always peaceable, it is never rebuked. Right. So, yeah, it's very similar to the Stephen Mitchell. It's kind of talking about just how to be. But I feel like this one is, I mean, this one's just a little bit different. You know, let's see, then thinking, keep to the simple, the quiet meadow part. For a heart, the circling eddy, that one, that's a little bit more poetic for me there. I don't know what, Brandon, do you have any thoughts on that?
Circling eddy. I'm just reminded of water
again. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. When you see an eddy in the water and the circling. Mm-hmm. So I would say it's telling you to keep your heart kind of like the eddy in the water, just a continual motion.
Okay.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And generosity, being kind. I don't see that over on the Stephen Mitchell side. In speech, it is sincere. I think that's kind of more about the conflict part there. In authority, it is order. So that's in governing. And then the don't try to control, but this one just talks about just being orderly. So that's a little different too. In affairs, it is ability, or this one's about work, Stephen Mitchell. So yeah, they're just a little bit different, but they're kind of still telling you, giving you some guidelines. In movement, it is rhythm. Yeah, I don't know that I see that. And then, and as much as it is always peaceable, it is never rebuked. So, this being content to be yourself, don't compare, compete. Everyone will respect you. And this is saying no one's going to rebuke you. So, yeah, it's just a little slightly different interpretation.
And also, the Dwight Goddard version is telling you how the Tao is, and the Stephen Mitchell version is basically telling a person how to live.
Oh, yes. Good point. I think I noticed that when I first read it. And but yeah, thanks for that pointer.
No problem.
Pointing that out.
All right. Stan Rosenthal, 1984 version. Like water, the sage abides in a humble place. In meditation, without desire. In thoughtfulness, he is profound. And in his dealings, kind. In speech, sincerity guides the man of Tao. And as a leader, he is just. In management, competence is his aim. And he ensures the pacing is correct. Because he does not act for his own ends, nor cause unnecessary conflict, he is held to be correct in his actions toward his fellow man. And I feel like this is just another way to kind of explain the last two. It's all pretty much the same. It's just like a different put it, right?
Different words a little bit, but same kind of general theme. Yeah. So the Aleister Crowley version, verse 8, part 2 of it says, the virtue of a house is to be well placed, of the mind to be at ease and silence as of space, of societies to be well disposed, of governments to maintain quietude, of work to be skillfully performed, and of all motion to be made at the right time. Also, it is the virtue of a man to abide in his place without discontent. Thus offendeth he no man. And since you noticed the last two, how they were kind of about different things, Stan Rosenthal's talking about the sage and describing how the sage is. And Aleister Crowley is talking about a house. Let's see. Oh, no, he's just talking about, okay, the virtue of the house is to be well placed, of the mind to be. Yeah, he's more describing things as they are instead of talking about like a sage and how the sage behaves. So that's interesting. It's also
pointing out, it seems like he's pointing out the virtue in each one. Like the virtue of a house is to be open. Virtue of the mind is to be.
Oh, there you go. So the day, the TEH.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So this one, he's not really telling you or telling anybody how to live or giving advice. He's just pointing out that the virtue of a house is this, that
yeah. Without, I like that. He's pointing out maybe truth, but not necessarily telling you what to do about it. Just saying, hey, this is the way it is.
This is how it is. Do what you want, right?
Right. Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Yeah, how dare you? And my favorite part too, the virtue of all motion is to be made at the right time, right? So, I mean, I had my own words in there, but it's basically telling you that just act when it's proper, right? And don't worry about anything else. You just wait till you see the whites of their eyes, right? Wasn't that don't fire till you see the whites of their eyes? That was supposed to be in the Revolutionary War or whatever somebody said.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's like, wait till the right proper time and then take your action. It reminds me of something that Ram Dass said that I was listening to one of his talks. I think it was on the Bhagavad Gita, where he talks about making tea. And he said, everything you need to learn could be made in the proper way to make tea. He's like, you just get all the ingredients, you make the tea, and you serve it. He's like, you don't worry about how the tea is going to come out. You don't worry about this or that, or how people are going to like it, or am I going to do this or whatever. He's like, you just make it and serve it. Like,
that reminds me of the way people mention, like when something is made in love, you can taste the difference because you're doing it with thought and with care. So this is like attention to the present moment. If you're furiously trying to rush and like, oh, this, that, and the other, it might not taste as good because you weren't giving it sufficient attention. Could it be so that it would, well, in the end, it would taste better, probably, allegedly.
That's the secret ingredient, right? Love, attention,
Mm-hmm.
being here and making things and enjoying it. And I also like the last part where he says,
also, it is the virtue of a man to abide
in his place
without discontent. I was going to talk about that too. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go.
Well, I was going to say, okay, also it is the virtue of a man to abide in his place without discontent. Thus offendeth he no man. I was just going to just say, like, it reminds me of a quote. I can't remember when we read this quote, and it was where people talk about, or people who are such a way talk about these things, people who are such a way talk about these things, but people who are this way talk about people. What was that one?
Yeah. Strong minds discuss ideas.
Yeah.
I could probably find it.
Yeah. Well, I can't remember when we quoted that, and I don't remember if it's next week's quote either. So
no, next.
Okay, it's not. So then we have mentioned it. So anyway, that one,
or maybe
it makes me think of that quote, because when you are talking about other people, you could be offending them, right? Because why would you, unless like Spoons and I have talked about this, unless you're doing it with the purpose of like self-growth too, like observations and, discussing things like why such behavior is a certain way, or without judgment, but just as an observation. But when people mostly talk about other people, it's usually with criticism and judgment. So, like, if you're not doing something like that, you're not offending anybody, right? Because there's no one to offend when, at least in that way. Now, of course, people these days get offended by almost anything. So, but it says, it is the virtue of a man to abide in his place without discontent. When you are content with your life and you are living in a place of being in the moment and living in that present moment and not complaining and just being content. I mean, maybe happy, but content with everything, then no, you're not offended. Like, how can you be offensive to anybody except somebody maybe who is offended by you being happy and them not being happy or something?
Yeah, exactly.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, no, I love that. It's so true. I was just going to say that pretty much the same thing, but it's kind of like a victim narrative thing, right? It's like you're not a victim. You're just content and you deal with things as they arise.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when something happens, even to me, if something bad happens, I'd be like, oh man, why me? But as you say, why me, you're kind of putting yourself above everybody else, right? Because of course we're all here to experience things and learn lessons, and good and bad things are going to happen to us. So it's more about dealing with things as they come up and as they happen, as opposed to not dealing with them and just feeling like a victim, right? And then as you do this, people are going to respect you. And if they don't, I think they'll kind of just fall away from you. So It's more about just being content with what you have. Be happy with what you have,
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude. And gratitude for, I also attempt to be grateful for, I guess you could say, the goal, right? Because let's say it's kind of like Neville Goddard talks about, like, imagining yourself in the space that you desire to be. So if it's like, okay, I don't want to have allergies anymore, right? Let's just say that your goal is to just be free from allergies. Then you just imagine yourself in that space where you don't have to carry around tissue all the time, or you're not always sneezing or whatever. Imagine yourself in that contented state, Where was I going? I forgot what I was saying.
I'm not sure where you were going to go exactly, but we were talking about being content.
Yeah. So yeah, wherever I was going was about being, gratitude.
Yeah,
So
gratitude.
like I try to be grateful for that. So like I'm grateful for I mean, I maybe not because I don't have that. That's not my exact goal, right? The not allergies thing. But like I just try to be, maybe I'm grateful that the allergies are teaching me something. And maybe I don't know what they're teaching me at the moment, but I'm just grateful that they're teaching me something that from which I can grow. And that I know that I will know that I won't experience them anymore once I've realized that, or I've grown from whatever it was I needed to learn, for lack of a better explanation.
Or simply, you could be grateful that you have the point of view and the worldview to know that you're not a victim, and that when things that people perceive as bad happen, that you can learn from them or see there's something more to this. You could be grateful that you had that point of view.
Yes, yes.
There's so many things to be grateful for. You could be grateful that you woke up in the morning.
Yeah.
It's kind of like finding silver linings.
Yes.
In things that happen. That's really what gratitude is about, because as you focus on that, I feel like wherever your attention goes,
energy
flows. So if you have your attention on the things that you enjoy in life, or whatever it is, the better things, the positive, or whatever you want to have happen in your life, if your attention stays there. It's like earlier somebody said, I think it was RoboHonky said, worrying is like praying for, what do you say? Worrying is like praying for bad things to happen, or whatever. It's the same thing, because your attention is on that worrying or on that bad thing. So chances are maybe it won't happen, but you're making it more likely that it's going to happen. And just the word worry itself, because I've been listening to this Wheel of Time, and they use the word worry more like worrying at a tooth. So like if you have a loose tooth, like a kid has a loose tooth, he might play with it a lot with his tongue or whatever, just like worrying at it till it comes out. It's the same thing when you're worrying about something, you're worrying with your mind, and you're just,
oh my gosh,
it's
you're
like
moving it around.
It's like
you're
an
giving it
unconscious
energy.
Yeah, you're giving it energy.
Holy
It's like
freaking
unconscious.
smokes.
Yeah. Isn't
That's
that crazy?
insane.
Yeah. It's like an unconscious, like if you see somebody that's like has a loose tooth and they just keep working at it, it looks, after a while, they look like they're a little, not like crazy, but they're just, they're just
OCD is the word.
Exactly. So it's the same kind of thing with it. If it's just something that you're worrying about the future, it's that same kind of thing. It's just not in the physical, it's in the mental, but you're putting your brain through that same kind of I don't know, exercise or whatever, trauma.
Wow. But isn't OCD, I think OCD must be like that, because I've known people who were OCD about washing their hands, and it's like they don't want to do it, but they do it because it's like it must be a constant worry in their mind. Oh my God.
Yeah, so they're working at it, they're picking at it, they're worrying at it,
Oh my gosh.
And, again, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Like, I love to say, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Like, people are going to be like, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, well, guess what?
I'm the same way.
There's other things that are going to happen. So that thing you're worried about might not even materialize. It might not even look the way you think,
Right. I've had moments like that where I just tell myself that we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Cross that bridge when we get there. That's right.
Yeah.
That would be like us starting our podcast 2 years ago and being like, what are we going to talk about on our 100th episode?
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't have known. How would we have known?
How would we know that we'd have the amazing Benjamin Balderson in our
chat? And Gordy.
And Gordy, yeah.
And all these cool people.
Yeah, all these cool people. I just mean Benjamin because I knew who he was at the time as a content creator, you know, like we could have never known. And think of all the people we've had on our show too, all the amazing guests, you know, we would have never had an idea that would have been possible. So,
yeah.
So thank you guys all for making this possible.
Yeah.
Because without you, it'd just be me and Sharon talking to each other.
And I suppose that's okay too.
Yeah, that would have been fine too. That would have been great. But now at least we're able to
Share
document it, and we have
and
a little bit to
overshare.
show. Yeah. And we have something to show for all the hours that we spend researching different things and looking into different topics, you know. And this could be another lesson going along here with what we were talking about earlier, like not worrying about the outcome. You know, Sharon and I, we plan an episode and we record it, and it comes out how it comes out, and it hits people how it hits people. We're not worried about what people are going to think or how it's going to hit them. We just deal with it as it comes. And we really haven't had any negative interactions. I mean, we had a couple funny things that happened, you know, like with the grounded extracts and all that fun stuff. But you know, other than that, even the stuff we've been through, like with the whole Owen Benjamin and all that stuff, we came out with friends on both sides of all this stuff, you know, and people who really like what we're up to and just like us for who we are, not for who we like or who we listen to or watch, or, you know. And so I think that should show you, that should tell you something about us in this show. And we kind of are already living in accordance with the Tao in that way, where we just do what we feel called to do in that given moment. And we're not really worried about how it affects other people.
Because we're not doing anything evil or wrong or bad.
Or we're not telling people how to live.
Yeah. We're just doing our best to live by the golden rule.
Yeah, we're like a guide.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. We're using our own personal experience and things that we've been through and learned as entertainment for other people. And hey, if they get something out of it, great. If they laugh, even better, you know.
This is an entertainment podcast, everyone.
Yeah, it is entertainment. We're definitely not a medical show.
Philosophically entertaining, shall we say.
Yes, that's right. And we don't care who you praise or who you worship or any of that stuff, as long as you hit the like button and subscribe and share. And shout out to the chat. Thank you guys so much for being here on our 100th episode.
Yes,
you guys
live
are amazing
with us today.
Yes. And that's what, because I pinned it. Robo Honky said worrying is praying for stuff that hasn't happened yet.
Yes.
100% true. And Zeralast says truth is a world shattering event. Truth is the ontological shock the profane can't see they need till it's happened to them. Yeah, that sounds about right. But you know what? Thank God for the profane. I'm just going to say I have gratitude for all these people who are going to dust off their things so they could cover their smiling faces to get ready for PSYOP season. You know, because you think about it, the summer's almost over. August is coming into September. People are going back to school and work and stuff. So you might as well get back to PSYOP season.
It's like a new season. It's like when you pull your boots out because it's getting cold, or you pull your swimsuit out because it's summertime. You know,
got to dust off that thing so we can cover your smiling face, but not us on the Over Sharon show. And again, I don't really think that's going to be, because I think that ship has sailed. But again, we could be wrong, right? The intellect. But I don't see that. I don't see people going crazy like they did in 2020. I think too many people are over it. But I feel like pulling this out again is like an opening act for another PSYOP that might happen. So, as these things happen, just remember what's important, which is the Over Sharon show. And just keep being Over Sharonites and you'll be fine. I don't know. But I think we came to the end of this 100th episode. Is there anything else you wanted to get in before we stick a fork in it?
I think that was it. I don't think I had any other.
Oh, RPNEZ Beat says happy 100th episode.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And AGST 719 says Sharon. That's right. Thank you guys, says Gordy Two Shoes. Thank you, Gordy. Thank you for being a great guest. We're gonna have to get him back on soon. Well, we'll be doing guests again soon, we promise. we just had to, it's the beginning of PSYOP season, so we had to get ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
It's summer. People are busy too.
Yeah, I don't even really honestly pay attention. I know I've said this before, but I probably pay attention less than ever. But the only way I know things are going on is just basically by being on Instagram once in a while and seeing the memes. Like I saw the meme of a 7-Eleven on the moon, and it's like, wow, that was quick. So I'm immediately like, oh, did India go to the moon?
Hilarious. Yes.
That's the thing. Just like our quote in the beginning, Philip K. Dick talks about the funny things that come out of quote unquote tragedies.
Mm-hmm.
Tragedy. I was gonna say strategy, but with tragedy.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy strategy. Tragedy. Oh man, I can't even say it.
That's funny. It's like I've seen those little shorts on like YouTube or on Instagram or whatever, where they're saying, okay, I bet you can't say this. And then I saw one for a Scottish dude the other day and it had like a bunch of R's that were all kind of in, together. And it was like, he couldn't say it for the life of him. It was hilarious.
That's funny. Our Revnez Beats says PSYOP season. I canceled my season tickets this year. Yeah, exactly. It already has tragedy in the word. Yeah, it does. You're right. Its strategy has tragedy right in it. It's a tragedy
strategy. Strategy.
I'll work on that one for next week. Well, actually, next week, look for our episode. We're going to premiere episode 101, where we talk about the 7 Essene mirrors.
Well, it's not episode 101. It's episode 76, but it's our 101st episode.
101st episode, where we talk about the 7 Essene mirrors and how people could be a mirror for you, which is great because Sharon and I kind of already knew about how people are mirror your own behavior back to you sometimes, but this one takes it a step further because sometimes somebody's displaying behavior that you don't like and you're like, oh,
that you don't even do yourself.
Yeah, and you're like, that's behavior I don't even I don't display myself. Why am I mad about this? Well, it's because you're judging that behavior, and so maybe there's something there you have to work on. Maybe you have to figure it out.
You're viewing that behavior in such a negative light that you're looking down upon this person for having that behavior.
Exactly. And the one they talk about where people feel like even if he's a married person who's been married forever, has kids, loves their wife, but they meet women and they feel like they're falling in love with them automatically all the time.
That's another of the Essene mirrors.
That is, and you have to watch next week if you want to know what that's about. We won't spoil it, but that's a good one because it really made a lot of sense for me when I saw that. So
yeah, very interesting.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys so much again for hanging out for 100th episode, and shout out to the chat. Thank you guys. If you're viewing this sometime in the future, again, remember, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and share on morelawsandmoreproblems.com, the Over Sharon tab for more. Did you have anything you want to say, or just making sure?
Yeah, spoons reminded me of what the guy was trying to say, the Scottish guy. And it was purple burglar alarm, because it's purple burglar alarm. Their accents are so their R's are so hard. Couldn't for the life of them say it.
Oh man, that's so funny. Oh, QSB, see you later, man. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
All right, everybody. Share. How did I do this? All right, Sharon, what do we say to the good people?
That once you start over Sharon,
then you totally stop being a Karen.
That's right.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye.